Welcome back, or just welcome if this is your first time here. My name is Luca and this is part 3 of my anxiety story. If you haven't watched the previous videos, I recommend starting from the beginning. They explain how everything slowly built up. But you are also welcome to start right here with this video. In this video, I'll talk about the moment when anxiety stopped being subtle and turned into my first panic attack. And how I understand that whole process, whole situation now, looking back with a calm mind. My first real encounter with a panic attack didn't come out of nowhere. There were early signs, as I mentioned in the previous video. Then came 3 intense months with 3 major events, one after another. Events that pushed the whole process forward. The first event was that my wife had a miscarriage. The second one, I lost my job. And the last one, I found out that my father had cancer. What emotions show up in the moments like this depends a lot on how we deal with what happens to us. I'll try to explain in my own way how I see that whole process and the state we find ourselves in. To start with, let's imagine that each of us has emotional pipe. The entrance of that pipe is always fully open, and at the other end of that pipe, the exit, there is a movable lid that opens when needed. Into that pipe go all emotions triggered by events in our lives, shaped by how we react to those events and how we think about them afterward. Now, it's hard to put people into boxes, but let's imagine 2 extreme types of people. The first type includes people who deal with the unpleasant situations fairly quickly. They process what happened, close the chapter, and move on, leaving the situation and emotions it caused behind them, all within a relatively short period of time. They simply allow the lid at the end of the pipe to open and let those emotions flow out. Then there is the second type of people. They react to unpleasant events differently. They process them much longer, or sometimes they never really finish processing them at all. During all that time, the emotions those events created stay inside their emotional pipe. The lid at the end doesn't open. Those emotions don't get the chance to come out. In most cases, the processing never truly ends. The emotions remain trapped inside, pushed into a kind of temporary forgetfulness, but still very much there. Because that lid is rarely opened, the hinges that allow it to move slowly start to rust. Eventually, the lid can no longer open. And in the end, that pipe turns into a powder keg, with all those accumulated emotions becoming the explosive inside. It keeps filling up, slowly, quietly, until one small spark is enough to shake the whole system, our body and mind. A brain that has been constantly irritated by a tense, exhausted body through many small false alarms needs just one stronger signal from the body to trigger a full-scale emergency alarm. And that's exactly what happened to me. It was a hot summer Saturday morning. For breakfast, I ate 3 very large salty sandwiches and washed them down with a lot of liquid. I don't even remember what it was, but it definitely was a big mistake. After that, my wife and I had to transport some things across the city. After a few kilometers of driving, I felt pressure in the lower part of my chest, most likely from overeating and my diaphragm being pushed upward. That pressure caused my heart to start beating a bit faster, and that was enough for my brain to register that something might be wrong. I decided to take a short break and stretch a bit, hoping it would help. I pulled over, took a few steps out of the car, drank some bottled water I had with me, and then we continued to our destination. After we finished what we needed to do, we decided to stop at nearby cafe just to cool down, since I was still feeling that mild discomfort. Thinking it would help, I ordered a Coke. It usually helps me with the stomach or digestive problems, but that day it was definitely the wrong choice. It made things even worse. The carbonation from the Coke created even more pressure on my diaphragm and then on my heart. And that's when chaos started in my head. I had never experienced anything like this before, not until that moment. And when you don't know what's happening, your mind gives plenty of space to dark thoughts. The first thought was simple and terrifying. I sat down to rest, and it's getting worse. This must be a heart attack. That's the moment when panic took over. My breathing became shallow, and the summer heat didn't help at all. One negative thought followed another, and within minutes, I found myself lying on a couch inside a cafe, completely drained of strength. I thought I was dying, that it was over. The staff brought me sugar and water. I begged my wife to call an ambulance, which they did. So in just 5 minutes, I went from healthy, capable man to a completely exhausted wreck. When the ambulance arrived, my condition instantly improved by at least 50%. They measured my blood pressure. It was pretty high. Then put me in the ambulance and turned on the siren like in the movies. And suddenly I was being driven by people whose job was to save me and take me somewhere safe. I was relieved, very relieved. My condition kept improving because I felt protected and safe. Halfway there, something unexpected happened. The ambulance stopped. The doors opened and the paramedic asked me how I was feeling and whether I could get up and sit down on the chair inside the back of the ambulance so they could bring in a woman who had collapsed on the street. It was an extremely hot day and many people had fainted. Feeling important again and suddenly strong, I said, "Of course, no problem, I'm fine now." But in the end, it didn't happen because another ambulance arrived for her just a bit late. At the emergency center, I went through all necessary tests, neurological, cardiac, everything. Aside from slightly elevated blood pressure, everything was fine. They gave me an IV with something to calm me down and restore my strength, and then they sent me home. I left happy, but very confused. I thought this was just something that happened once and that it was over. I didn't want to talk about it, especially not to worry my parents or my sister. Only my wife knew what had happened, no one else. Since my car was still parked near the cafe, I decided to go get it the next day. So, not the same day, the next one. Somehow I felt I wasn't ready yet. The next day, my wife and I went to get the car. And on the way back on the same street, same place where the symptoms had started the day before, my heart suddenly began racing again. The same negative thoughts started flooding back. I felt like I couldn't breathe. It was another panic attack. I pulled over and left my car again. We took a taxi to the emergency center, and the moment I step out of the taxi in the park in front of the hospital, I felt completely fine. No symptoms, nothing. I didn't even go inside the emergency department, but just being there made me feel safe enough for the symptoms to fade. Looking back now, I can say this was the moment when my conscious mind ignored all logic, the fact that specialists had examined me the day before and found nothing wrong. Instead, my conscious mind fully trusted its subconscious brother, a well-trained, experienced fox, always ready to automatically react, especially in crisis situations. For that part of my brain, the subconscious, there was no difference between a real danger and a negative thought strong enough to create fear, trigger a panic attack, and send me back to the emergency room. After about 15 minutes sitting in the park in front of the emergency department, my wife and I went home. So this was my first panic attack, or second. Anxiety had been building quietly, and the ambulance didn't really save my body, it saved my brain. This wasn't the end. It was the start of a phase where my home became my only safe place. In the next video, I'll talk about the moment I stopped going out and the first time I realized I wasn't going crazy. That's where real understanding begins. So stay with me and see you in the next video.